Well, our guest today is quite an interesting fella. If you've been to the northwest area of Arkansas, you either know of him or you know him personally. We talked to him today from his hometown in Bentonville. Jens, Andy Chasteen, great dude.
You can say that again. Yes, it all starts with a fantastic haircut. I used to have that myself back in my younger years. It was great chatting with him and all these projects and this community building they have going on. It looks like they are the example of a lot of cities should follow.
Yeah, I got to experience it firsthand just over a week ago. It was phenomenal. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy our conversation with Andy Chasteen. All right, everyone. Welcome, Andy Chasteen, to Bobby and Jens.
Thank you all. Thank you all for having me. I'm honored to be on here. I've followed both of y'all for years on TV, so it's nice to see you on another TV screen actually right in front of me.
But but Andy, isn't this a weird world? Like I met you at the Rule of Three that you promoted back in 2022. I got to
Yeah,
ride bikes with you last week, and boom, now you're on the Bobby and Jens podcast. I love it.
that was fast. That was real fast.
Well, before we get into it, our viewers can see you, but our listeners can't. You are sporting Jens's favorite haircut. Jens actually had a mullet when he turned pro for credit. What was that? Gone back in the day, right, Jensi?
Yep, gun, yeah, and then turned into credit call. Yep, I had the mullet. And I still believe I looked the best ever with that mullet. And here's a little extra info for all of you folks. My wife absolutely loved when we went to the movies to put her hand on my shoulder and play with my hair because it was nice, long and soft. She liked it, especially if the movie would get a little scary. She liked to
Uh,
actually, play with my hair. So yeah, that was a big selling point of myself to my wife now.
it's funny you say that because I have a mullet because my wife loves it, and she actually threatens, and she can attest to this. She threatens to divorce me when I cut it off. So I've had this thing for at least 10 years now. It's just a regular haircut to me now. So yeah.
Well, you wear it well, my friend. But listen, listen, Bentonville, Arkansas is on the tip of everyone's tongues at the moment. But, what's going on there didn't happen overnight, up there in Northwest Arkansas. But
Right.
we're going to talk about that more a little bit later. But I want to talk about you. What is your story? What is your connection to Bentonville?
Oh man, so I grew up kind of across the border. Bentonville is right in the northwest corner of Arkansas. So we are 15 miles from the southwest Missouri border. And I grew up right across the border in southern Missouri. And so I spent most of my life in a very small town. Long story short, I went off to college and played basketball in college. And really, without going into too much detail, I kind of ended up back here through bikes, mostly bikes, really. And kind of the rest is history. I kind of got connected here into the bike realm, and I do a lot of advocacy work and obviously, events in the event space. I've shot photography for cycling for years, and so I'm in it. I'm fully in it, and Bentonville is home, and we call it heaven. My wife and I do. We love it here. So yeah, that's the short story. I mean, I could go into a much longer story behind it, but that's kind of the what we would call the Cliff Notes version for us old guys.
So then, what was there first for you? Your own bike, and you discovered you love riding the bike, and then you decided I want to work in the bike industry, or did you just got into the industry and then eventually bought your own first bike?
I backed into the bike industry, so it was very much by accident, and I even backed into cycling in general. When I first got into cycling, it would have been 2003, 2004, quite honestly, in your heydays, essentially, because I remember I graduated college. I had been playing basketball in college for 4 years, and I graduated college, and I thought, what's next? and I got into rock climbing and all these kind of fringe, niche sports. And I got into ultra trail running. This is a very weird story, but I got into ultra trail running, but to train for these long 50-mile, 100-mile runs, I would go on like a 10-mile run, and then I would go straight onto a bicycle. I wasn't a cyclist, but I would go on straight onto a bicycle and ride that bicycle for 4 hours to mimic the training for running without hurting myself. Obviously, I'm a pretty big guy, I'm about 200 pounds. And so I backed into cycling just by using it as a training tool for running. And I got fully and completely obsessed with it. I'll never forget my first big ride was the Triple Bypass out in Colorado. I believe it's probably 2004, 2005. And I'll never forget when we were out there, we were watching the tour. I'll never forget that. And so, without making your heads too big here, you guys were a lot of my inspiration for becoming obsessed with the bike. I watched you guys race for years, and I still am obsessed with watching World Tour bike racing. And so I got into cycling. I raced amateur, road for years on years, and got into mountain biking and gravel. And I kind of just backed into the industry first by just, as a hobby, taking photos of cycling, because I picked up a camera and was very interested in it. And then I quit my day job and decided to be a photographer. And really the rest is history. I kind of backed into the cycling industry through photography. And then I picked up clients in the bike industry, and I went into consulting, started my own company, and still consult for many bike brands in the industry. And so that's kind of how I got into it. And it was very much by accident. And it was this really nice way for me to move into a realm of making money that I was passionate about, that I did for free before I was even able to make money on it. So it's kind of this like fortuitous story that I kind of accidentally slid into this realm. And here I am kind of now, in the bike advocacy scene, telling people how amazing, Bentonville is, and I'm still taking photos, and I still consult with brands. And it's a pretty cool story. I'm very thankful every day I get up and do what I would do for free for money. So I love it. I love it so much.
So when did this vision of everything that's going on in Bentonville, because I saw it firsthand last week and it's massive, but when did this vision start?
Well, this would have been probably early 2000s, the vision really came from Tom and Stuart Walton, becoming very into mountain biking. And, I can't speak for them, but I think what really happened is they just became cycling fanatics. They were obsessed with mountain biking, and their first idea was let's build some trail, and it really was this interesting. I think Gary Vernon would be a really good guy to talk to as well, because he's kind of been a lot, very like overseeing a lot of the trail building efforts here in town over the past decade or more. And I think what he'll tell you is it was really kind of a build it and they will come thing. And it started off small, and it started off with a simple dream. It was to build a bunch of single track that we love to ride. And that's really kind of how it was born. And now obviously it's taken on a different flavor, in the past, few years or more. And so there is obviously a vision and a plan and an infrastructure behind that and ideas behind that. But that's kind of really how it started off. I wish I could tell you that it was just this grand scheme to take over the cycling world, but it was certainly not. It was born from a passion of cycling, which is what I think makes it sustainable.
For me, as somebody who isn't too involved with building trails or mountain biking, let's say you and your committee or your friends, your company, 1st of January, you decide we want to build a 10-mile lap in this forest or on that mountain. 1st of January, you come up with the idea. At what time you would ride that lap to be finished? 6 months, 1 month, 1 week, or 2 years? Whereas, you got to ask the owner of the property first. And there's probably a few other things to take care of. Just for my better understanding, how long from the idea to the finished trail?
Sometimes it depends. What I can tell you, this will probably give you a little bit better indication on how fast we're building trail here. So in the past, we've focused on a lot of different types of trail building, which could be like hand cut or machine cut, or cross country trail, or maybe like flow trail or downhill jumps, things like that. But historically speaking, give or take, we could be we're averaging in the realm of maybe 3 miles of trail per week here. Now that obviously that raises and lowers at times. As of recently, we've focused a little bit more heavily on hand cut trail, so which would be less machine work and more building trail by hand, which generally speaking, creates a little bit more of a sustainable trail system where you are. And so from conception to finish, you're looking at obviously a variable on let's say a 10-mile trail. But what I can tell you is, historically speaking, we've been building about 3 miles of trail per week in Bentonville for quite some time now. So we are hot and heavy, and quite honestly, we're kind of just getting started, which is kind of exciting as well, and also scary.
I mean, I saw some of these quote unquote hand-built trails in person last week, and you'd be out in the middle of nowhere, it felt like, and then all of a sudden there would be like this formation of rocks, and I was like, wait a second, somebody actually put these here. When you say that you can do that amount of week trail building per week, how many people are part of that? I mean, it's not just one guy out there with a chainsaw. It's a full crew of guys, and we rode with your buddy Woody, and he seems to oversee a lot of that. But like, how many people are on that crew?
Well, so Bentonville has a myriad of trail building companies that are headquartered here, who quite honestly, most of them have started here. You have a lot of different trail companies. You got Woody's company, which is Progressive Trail Design. You have Rock Solid Trail, you have Rogue Trail, you have a bunch of different trail companies who have really kind of had their birthplace here in Bentonville as a result of our trail building efforts here. And what a lot of those companies have done is they've kind of built their chops here. And now, for example, you've got Woody with Progressive. I mean, he's building trail all over the world now, because his business has grown to the point of, he's building in Durango. He's building in, where did he say he was building that? In Europe soon. I can't remember what he told me when we were riding. I can't remember that, but
yeah,
really, it's this big mixture of professional trail building companies building trail here. So the numbers are huge, Bobby. I couldn't even give you a number on the amount of trail crew that are out on trails at any given time here. So, and obviously that fluctuates too between seasons as well.
So then at the very early beginning, like very early, just like sneaking into the forest and like carving out the trail without asking a local farmer and just, hey, let's have a try at this? Or, I mean, you don't have to answer if this gets you in trouble. But I was just curious if you just, hey, let's just go into this forest and cut a few trees.
Well, I can't personally speak to the early days because I honestly actually wasn't around in the early days. But from the stories that I've been told from Gary and some of the other guys, it wasn't building what you would call like ghost or rogue trails. It was more of building trails on people's private property that there was permission, or it was partnering with a city or local government, right? So maybe like POA land, property owners association land, things like that, and building and working out easements through these different types of lands for trail. And what we found over the years, I say we, again, I wasn't around in the early days, but what we have found over the years is that building trail on your private property in Bentonville raises your property value. So now, where in the early days they had a hard time talking people into building trail on the property. Now, generally speaking, a lot of folks are begging to have trail built on the property because it well, first it gives you a connection to all the other trail systems in town, right? And two, it also raises your property value, which is really cool. And there's a very interesting recreational statute in Arkansas that basically, it basically states, and I'm simplifying it here, but if you do not charge for that activity, so if you're not charging for that, say that mountain bike trail that goes through your property, you're not liable for any accidents that happen on it, which is there's a really nice like lowering of regulatory, statutes that allows for this widespread progression of trail building here not only in Bentonville, but the state of Arkansas.
What makes a good trail, in your opinion? I saw how much machinery and I saw how much effort, but for you, like, what do you think about or suggest to these trail builders to make that trail that you prefer, that perfect trail?
Well, I am not I actually wouldn't consider myself an expert mountain biker. I love to mountain bike and well, you rode with me, you know what kind of a rider
Yeah, I call BS Yenzi. He was amazing. So he's definitely downplaying his abilities here.
Well, that's not true. But what I will say about what makes a good trail is, again, I hate to say it, I have never personally built trail. I just haven't. I'm not the guy that gets out there and with the tools and gets down and dirty on it. But what I will say is that professional trail building companies, and especially the guys and girls that are out on the trail building every day, they consider it an art form. And so it really is a piece of art. How does that trail flow? How does it climb? Is it a sustained climb, or do you get segments of reprieve during that climb, right? Where you climb a little bit and you get 2 or 3 seconds of downhill before you're back up, right? And how does that flow? How does that trail flow on a descent? So what about features that you're putting in, whether it be rock features or rock gardens or technical climbing or that type of thing? These trail building companies are serious in what they do, and it truly is an art form for them, which is really cool. And a lot of times you can tell that when you ride these trails. And a lot of times when a trail does get built, we'll go out before it gets opened. We'll go out and ride it and give feedback on that to that trail building company on maybe this berm could be steepened or shallowed in this section, and this is why. And it even goes into drainage, like how is this trail going to last for the next 10, 20 years without maintenance or very little maintenance. So there's water drainage. We get a lot of rain here in Bentonville. Bobby, that the gradients are steep, the climbs are steep. How do these trails not wash out when we get maybe a big downpour, 2 or 3 inches in a day or two of rain? And so these trail building companies have really turned to design, science, art, and really like it is a true wonder how some of these trail building companies build these trails to be sustainable, low maintenance, and ride so beautifully. Yeah.
So then in my touristic image in my mind, I would show up in Bentonville at the parking lot.
Yeah.
And there would be, let's say, 5 to 10 panels. Hey, the black coated is the hardest one. Red is easier. Blue is for the kids. Green is for the little kids or whatever. And an explanation to it. Is that how it is? Or is this just in my mind? I mean, how do people find a circuit that suits them and is not too much for them?
Sure. That's a great question, Jens. And generally speaking, trails they do have a rating system, like a green, blue, black, generally speaking, is how and that simplifies it. There's double blacks. There could be a green that has a little blue in it, right? A little bit more technical sections. But generally speaking, we have a rating system here. And when you show up to ride, there are very useful phone apps that you can use. One of them would be Trail Forks, and another one would be Mountain Bike Project, where you can actually get on your phone and it literally just kind of shows you the exact all the trail systems. You can click on that trail system and it'll show you this is how long it is, this is how much climbing it has in it, this is the rating for it, this is where the trailhead starts. It kind of has that overall information for you to go out and have a good experience on that trail system. Now, what I will say, Jens, as well, one thing that we've really focused on here in Bentonville is connectivity. So you noticed this, Bobby, where you stayed in Bentonville, you stayed kind of close to the square, like kind of right downtown. Bentonville's not a big city. It's a, it's like a, mid-size, maybe big, what you'd call like a big town is what it is. But where Bobby stayed, you can literally right out the back of his condo, you can jump right on single track. And from that single track, you can access hundreds of miles of single track almost without ever getting off of single track. So what we do here is we focus on connectivity. How accessible are trails from neighborhoods in town? So really kind of our goal is to make sure that like folks can hop onto a trail from their neighborhood from almost anywhere. That's really kind of the vision and the goal. And then another goal is to connect all these different trail systems together so that there's no disconnects, right? So that you don't have to drive your car over to this trailhead and then maybe you want to ride another trail system, across town, and you got to get back in your car and drive over to that. The whole idea is to make it all connectable, right? We want you to be able to connect it and to ride all these different spurs of trails to get to where you want to go at any given time. Yeah.
Well, I know I wasn't there for very long. We only rode for 3 days there. But one of the most unique features that I just can't explain, I was trying to explain it to Jens and our producer, Mark, was the castle. Can you tell us
The castle,
where
yeah.
the idea, because it looked like an amusement park. And you had multiple different ways of going down the castle. You guys picked the black one. I picked the green one, and just kept my tires on the dirt. But tell us and our listeners and viewers about that castle project, because it is one of the most unique things. I mean, I've never seen anything like it.
To get to so the castle kind of really is the culmination of what we call our hub concept. So generally speaking, a hub is a gathering place most of the time at the top of a climb, right? Like maybe it's at a high point in a trail system. And that hub is a gathering place for riders. And it's a centrally located place where you've got maybe 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different trails that spider off of that hub. And so you have all these different options. Like you said, for example, at the castle, you do this climb. What would you say that climb is, Bobby? Maybe a less than a mile climb to get up to the top there, and it's very,
Yep.
it's contoured to where it's kind of like switchbacks to get up to it, right? So it's a gentle climb to get up to the castle, and it's this beautiful rock castle. But at the top of the castle, you have these options to go down all of these different like kind of little downhill runs, whether it be a green line or a blue line or a black jump line, or a black line that's like real technical rock garden descent, right? Most of them are jump lines, but some of them have some tech flow in it. And so the whole idea is, for one, it allows you and your friends that are out riding together to climb up to the spot. And if you want to rest, you can rest there. You can hang out there. You can take pictures. You can do whatever you want. But it also gives the rider options, right? To go down these different, I guess you would call them almost like ski runs, essentially, right? Like at a ski resort, based upon your ability or your desire of the type of trail that you want to go down. And we have hubs like that everywhere. We have hubs in every trail system that we have that give you options, which is really nice, because what we want to offer here is a little bit of something for everyone. We want to have the black trails, the huge jump lines, the technical descents and climbs with huge rock gardens for the advanced riders. But we want these green lines for maybe newer or beginner riders, or even people that maybe it's their first ride ever. we want everyone to be able to have a great experience here. And so that's kind of the idea behind those hubs. And the castle is the flagship, obviously. It's just this beautiful, beautiful architecture, stonework. Yeah.
Talking experience, have you ever experienced the moment where like you would show up in your Lycra, maybe even with a bit of like, start and muscle oil on your legs at the farmer's door and ask, "Hey, sir, can we build a bicycle trail across your land?" And what would the farmer say if you go a little further away from town? Have you ever experienced any funny moments there where they go, WTF? What are you talking about?
Well, Jens, we have experienced those, but I would say that we experience them more on our gravel rides. So we haven't got into this yet, and I don't know if you want to, Bobby, but like the
Yes.
gravel scene and the gravel riding in the Bentonville area is second to none. We have over 1,000 miles of unpaved roads, gravel roads, just in this county alone, right? And so we're even working on the gravel experience as well. So what I would say is the answer to that is Jens is yes, but generally speaking, the weird, Lycra interactions with the farmers have been on the gravel roads for sure. But we're, one of the cool things that we're doing here is we're developing the relationships with our farmers, the people who live on these rural lands and these rural roads. We're developing relationships with them and educating our riders. How do you behave as a gravel rider around someone riding their horse out on the road, or how do you behave on the roads with a farmer driving his tractor with a hay bind behind it, or so we're looking at this vast array of different ways of riding a bike, and gravel. Obviously, we all know that it's the fastest growing segment of riding right now, especially in the United States. And so we're working on projects that sustain and enhance the gravel riding experience in perpetuity here as well. So,
yeah, I mean, we got to do the mountain bike for 2 days and the gravel for one. And I was pretty impressed with our group. We were kind of cruising down a road, and then all of a sudden there was a lady on a horse, and we were with, our group, and George Hincapie was in the front and Christian Vandervelde. And I was like, wow, why are we stopping? And then I saw the horse. I was like very impressed with George's attitude and realization that, hey, listen, we're just out here for fun. We don't need this lady getting bucked off her horse. So that's, to his credit, I was pretty impressed that he knew that etiquette around riding with a horse. But so
yeah.
we did about a 50-mile-ish gravel ride. And, the flavor of the gravel, again, this is coming from a Cat 6 gravel guy, was kind of the same the whole time. Do you have other different flavors of gravel other than what we rode, different types? I'm kind of leading into, your rule of three event.
Of course. Yeah. So Bobby, there's a lot of, we live in this really cool area in Bentonville. We're in Benton County. So if you go north or northeast or northwest of town, you get a lot of this lumpy, really pitchy, steep climbs, but they're very short. You get a lot of chunky gravel, wider, higher volume tires necessary, lots of low water creek crossings. Bobby got to ride through a creek at one point. But then if you go, it's interesting, if you head southwest of Bentonville, you get into more kind of like flatter farmland, a little bit more open, less trees. The gravel's a little bit more hard pack. You can you can ride a little bit lower volume tire. And then another beautiful point, and I think Bobby's headed in this direction, which is one of our favorite ways of experiencing a ride in Bentonville, is what we call rule of three riding. And the rule of three, those three things are pavement, gravel, and single track. And essentially you do all of those terrains on a gravel bike. And so with our vast array of mountain bike trails here, and many of them are green, smooth flow lines, right? You can jump in and out of pavement, gravel, single track, gravel, pavement, gravel, single track. You can like pop in and out of all these different terrains all day long on a ride, and you do it all on a gravel bike. And it's one of the most fun ways to ride a bike that I have ever experienced. And it's so well done here just because of the infrastructure that we've built around trails and connectivity, obviously. And so a few years ago, you're leading in, I know you're leading into this, Bobby, so I'm just going to go there. A few years ago, we found an event called the Rule of Three, and it's a 100-mile gravel race, and it incorporates 50 miles of gravel, 30 miles of pavement, and 20 miles of single track, all on a gravel bike. And you're kind of all in and out of it all day long. It's 100 miles, about 10,000 feet of climbing. It's a very, 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 very hard day on the bike. And it's taken hold. We sell out in just a few minutes, 1,500 spots every year. And so it's a beautiful way to celebrate community. And it's a really hard day on the bike. Bobby's done it. He can attest. And we got to get you back, Bobby. We got to get you back.
You know, we talk to so many interesting people with interesting events that Jens tends to commit us to a lot of events that would be a logistical nightmare. But the one thing that about the Rule of Three is you just look at the mileage, right? Like you said, 50 miles on the gravel, 30 miles on the pavement, 20 miles on the single track. And I kind of was like, okay, this is good. We're going to be able to go this fast, because when I did the Rule of Three, it was a team. So you had two other teammates, the Rule of Three, you had to stick together. And calculating the time that you're on the gravel is one speed. Calculating the time that you're on the road is a totally different speed. I was wrong with calculating the time of the single track, because when I did it, the single track was much towards the end. I think that segment was 8 miles, and it took us at least 2.5 or 3 hours to do that 8 miles, because we kept having flats, you know, and I'm just like, we're so close, but so far. And then it started to get dark, and then finally we were at the finish line. But yeah, great event. And then the week before we got there was the Big Sugar event. Tell us a little bit about the Big Sugar event, because we had a recent guest that went out and did that and kind of gave us a little prelude to it. And that was a big week, you know, mountain bike, and then a full week of activities, and then the gravel at the weekend before we got there.
Yeah. So what we found, what we like to call Bentonville these days is we feel like we're a ski town now for bikes, right? And so October's a very busy month in Bentonville because the weather's beautiful. Lifetime comes and they put on the week before Big Sugar. As a matter of fact, they put on the Little Sugar mountain bike race, which is 100K of continuous single track, which is just wild. You get a lot of feedback. You know, Tom Pidcock came and did it this year, and his feedback was, he was like, I can't remember the last time I did 100K of single track without, you know, dirt roads in the middle or a little bit of pavement, like to give you a little rest for a few minutes or a few seconds. And so he was like, that was brutal. So the Little Sugar is the week before Big Sugar. And then the entire week in between Little Sugar and Big Sugar, you've got, you know, People for Bikes are bringing their shift conference here. There's so many things going on in Bentonville these days in the bike scene. But then you've got Big Sugar is kind of like the culmination of the Lifetime Grand Prix, which is, you know, the last race in that series. And that's another 100-mile gravel race that gets you, you know, a good, you know, 7,000-8,000 foot of climbing. I think they have a couple thousand people show up. There's festivals around it. There's Outer Bike the same weekend that's going on here. And so Bentonville is just this beautiful madhouse of cyclists everywhere. And it's like this, you know, I certainly love it because it's this energetic time in this tiny town, and everyone's just riding bikes around, you know. It's kind of this beautiful time where like-minded people are in the same place from all over the country and all over the world. So yeah, there's a lot of things going on in this town these days, and October is definitely the culmination of it. But Big Sugar's another beautiful event that gets put on here, and we got to have you guys out for that one too. Jens, come see us, man. You got to come see us for Big Sugar, Rule of Three, all these things.
Well, if there's only 1 week in between, I can just stay, right?
That's right. You can race the mountain bike race. It's on a Sunday. And then the following Saturday is Big Sugar. So it works out perfect for you. And then that whole week, is full of all kinds of cool things going on.
More riding or a bit of fly fishing, for example. Yep, sounds good to me. Hey, a little bit more serious question now. We talked about how great mountain biking and gravel is developing, but it seems like, at least from my perspective here in Europe, that the road cycling scene in the US is really, really declining.
Sure.
Would you have any like easy to understand reason why that would be? Because, back then, Lance Armstrong and the next generation, Bobby, Christian van der Velde, they all did really, really well. And
That's right.
Now it seems like there's just no more racing going on. And so why would that be? Would you have any idea, ever thought of that?
I mean, I think the simple answer is that gravel has just become so popular. It's, I think what you found is it's difficult, financially speaking, as an event promoter, and I'm sure there's a lot more reasons to this. This isn't the only reason, but what I found is that if you're an event promoter, it's much easier to put on a gravel event because you're not having to close roads, you don't have follow cars, you don't have you don't have to require people. I'm sorry, no offense, Brendan Quirk over at USA Cycling, but you don't have to have. It's not sanctioned. There's no licensing involved. Crit racing was big in America for the longest of times, and you have to close off roads for that. Those are, generally speaking, losing financial endeavors. Generally speaking, because you've got payouts, you've got all these permits. But for a gravel event, you don't have to close the roads. You don't have permitting. Well, in some cases you have some permitting, but you also don't have to. You basically got to pay for some liability insurance, and then you can and then you let these riders go out and ride on these open gravel roads, which are not busy, and generally speaking, there's no payouts, and then let's not forget either that a gravel event is very similar to what I would say. We all know this, but a marathon, any given marathon has how many people at the front of that race going for the win? 10, 20 people. The rest of the people are participants in that event, and they're going for the best time that they can get. I have no idea what's going on in the background of my computer there. Did you guys see that?
That was awesome.
What in the
cool.
world?
It looked really cool.
What happened there? Who knows? Okay,
Your kids must have set you up.
I know, right? So like in a marathon, you've got those 10, 20 people going for the win. And then you've got serious people going for their best time. You got some people that are just hoping to finish. And that's what a gravel event is. But a road race or a crit, those are all competitors. All of them are. No one is entering a road race just to finish. They're all trying to win in some way. They're training for it. So what that does is, like in a road race or a crit, your audience is this big. But for a gravel event, it's ginormous. So it's really not hard these days to put on a gravel event and charge people $50 and get 600 people to show up. And so I think there's a lot more involved in the decline of road cycling and racing in America these days. But I think that's a big part of it, right? Now, what I will say is currently I'm a huge fan of watching World Tour racing, and I still ride my road bike sometimes, not very often, but I'm obsessed with watching World Tour racing, and we do have some more American stars coming up in the scene, right? And so what is the result of that? That's little kids looking up to these racers and getting into it. And so I feel like it's a cyclical thing, and in my opinion, and I do believe that road racing will come back. I think it will come back. I think it's just a matter of time.
That's a good little segue into my next question, because back in the day, there was this scrawny little kid in Durango, Colorado named Sepp Kuss, who just happened to win the Tour of Spain this year. And when we were riding, you told me that there was a young girl that not only participated with you guys, but was crushing it on a 100-mile gravel ride, right? So you mentioned build it and they will come. What about, are we starting to see some of that that development, that young kids that, for the first time go out there and do the green trails, then upgrade to the blue trails. And now, could have a career in either gravel, mountain bike, or road cycling. Are there some development programs in the mix down there for getting these kids from starting off riding, gravel and mountain bike, and then maybe advancing and developing into, world tour professionals?
There are. I can give you some nice anecdotal examples as well. Like, for example, on any given day in town, there will be. I mean, every single day when I'm riding my bike in town, I don't ever drive a car here, by the way. I live close to town. We commute by bike. We live a carless life here, essentially, which is also another amazing way to live life, which is attainable in Bentonville. So, but anyways, on any given day, there's kids just manually wheelies down the road on their mountain bikes everywhere. So it's this beautiful. There's that kid that I was telling you about. I'll name him. The kid I was telling you about was a boy. I was also telling you about a girl, but the boy I was telling you about, his name's Park. And the first time I ever met him, he's probably 13 years old. He did a 100-mile gravel ride with us the other day at a pretty quick clip. The kid's super strong. And I was like, how long you been here? Why'd you move here? And he was like, well, yeah, we moved here a year ago. And I was like, well, why? He was like, for the bikes. And so his parents moved him here to develop his skills as a cyclist, and obviously for kind of a better quality of life, because Bentonville does offer that quality of life as well. So, and then the girl that I was telling you about, I believe she's 14 years old. We have there's on any given day, there's multiple group rides leaving from town at different bike shops and bike cafes, and this girl, she can hang with the strongest of group rides on the mountain bike. I mean, she is at the front, and it's just impressive to see these kids. And yes, I believe, Bobby, I know that you're very involved in bringing up and coaching people to that next skill level. But I personally believe that these kids, they need some structure, but we also have to make sure they're having fun too. I think that you have to. This is just my belief, and I could be completely wrong because I'm not in this scene like you are, Bobby. But we can't let these kids burn out. They have to be having fun while they're also in these structured training programs that takes them to the next level. And we do have that happening in Bentonville now. A lot of those programs are burgeoning. They're new. They're up and coming, and they might, some of them might have a little ways to go. But yes, those things are happening here, which is super exciting for the next generation for sure.
Are you also having a program where you would go to schools to teach the younger kids about, hey, this is a bicycle, this is how it works. You want to try maybe this afternoon, or you support like underprivileged regions or parts or families? You have programs like that as well, or you mostly focus on trail building?
No, it's all about the community here too. So I can name three of them. We have a lot more than that, but I'll name three of them that kind of that'll give you a little rundown through this. The first one is our community college offers a bike mechanic training school. And so you can graduate from the community college with a certificate in bike mechanics, which is very cool. So there's one. Number two would be a couple of the high schools in town also offer bike programs where these kids are learning how to. Well, first of all, they have there's a school in town called Thaden School, a high school that has the first ever gravel team, which is really cool. They also teach these kids how to work on bikes, build bikes. They're even building bikes in program. They're teaching these kids how to go bike packing. They're teaching these kids how to do media behind cycling. So, for example, there's a girl in this school right now that's doing a documentary on how we are building the relationship in gravel cycling between the rural community and the cyclist. So she's doing a documentary on that, which is really cool. And then also we have a lot of nonprofit organizations in the Bentonville area. One of them called Pedal It Forward, and they offer bikes to people who can't afford one for free. So there's many, 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 many different programs in the Bentonville area that are benefiting the community, that maybe the underserved communities, or maybe people who don't know how to get into it, or maybe kids. So all these different ways. We've got all these programs in town that are serving these communities, which is building our entire community behind cycling, which is very, very, very cool. It's very exciting. I'm telling you, it's an exciting time to be in Bentonville.
And yeah, okay, we've talked enough about biking, gravel, dirt, because Bentonville is much more than that. I mean, the
Yeah.
culture
Yeah.
that is there. I was absolutely blown away with the Crystal Bridges Museum of Modern Art.
Yep.
I didn't expect to see a Floyd Wright, Fred Floyd
Floyd
Wright
Wright. Yeah.
house in Bentonville. I was shocked, and it's only
Yeah.
getting bigger. Tell us a little bit about the culture that's being developed in Bentonville as well.
Yeah, so it doesn't stop with bikes, obviously. The art scene is actually quite big. We've got the Crystal Bridges Museum, and then we also have the Momentary. I believe you did visit the Momentary, right, Bobby?
Yes,
So we got
they were in between exhibits, but I got to see that property. It was amazing.
Okay, yeah. So we have a couple of world-class museums in town. We also have what's called the Amazeum, which is a world-class kids museum in town as well. So there is this really, really heavy focus on the arts here, which is very, very cool. We also have leaned heavily into culinary and food, music. The Momentary is leaning heavily into the live music scene out on the lawn, like outdoor music venues. And so there is this culmination of bikes, art, food, community, that we're focusing really, really heavily on. And we're not even stopping there. We're moving into more forms of outdoor recreation, which could be rock climbing or paddling, trail running. We've got all of this infrastructure and natural resources here. For example, I mean, Bobby, you saw a lot of our waterways. There's a lot of beautiful waterways in Northwest Arkansas for paddling. And so we're leaning heavily into all of these areas for what? A better quality of life for people, right? So, and industry as well. We're enticing and luring tech here. We're enticing and luring bike industry here. There's a lot of bike brands that have either moved here or are moving here. So again, I'm a broken record and I'm being repetitive here, but it's a very exciting time to be in Bentonville right now. That's for sure.
Just out of my curiosity now, now we talked about the community doing all these activities and sports and so on. Have you seen that the Bentonville population is healthier than the average American, or is there no connection to see?
Is it growing? Is that what you're saying? Are you saying that is the Bentonville population?
No, what I'm trying is, if you have all these people doing these sports, you have less people with obesity or overweight.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Your
Yes.
general population, are you healthier than the rest of America, or?
That's actually a really good question, Jens. And while I don't have statistics for you in front of me right now to tell you, absolutely, we are a much healthier, happier community than you'll find, in my opinion, anywhere in the country. And a more anecdotal evidence here. Everyone waves at everyone here. Everyone says hi to you on the street. I mean, Bobby, you can attest to this. People are friendly. They're happy. We have clean streets. We have beautiful places for people to hang out, that even if they're not interested in bikes, we've got beautiful parks. You don't have to be a cyclist to love living in Bentonville. That's for sure. We do offer a lot of community. We have every Saturday morning is the farmers market on the square. Every Saturday morning, like, these are things that contribute to the overall well-being of an entire community, not just for us people who ride bikes. That's for sure.
Andy, I know you live there, but what is your definition of a perfect day in Bentonville, Arkansas, from start to finish, from wake up till you go to bed?
Yeah, yeah. So I am self-employed. I do consult with a lot of different companies here in town, right? So I don't necessarily get up and go to the office every morning at a certain time. But my perfect day here involves um, getting on my e-bike, rolling into town for a coffee and a breakfast, do a little work at that. We've got a bunch of cafes in town. Bobby, you've been to the Meteor, you've been to the Hub, some of these other places that they're these beautiful meldings of bikes, coffee, beer, food, patio, all in one place, right? And so my perfect day is definitely getting on my e-bike, rolling into town, having a coffee at one of these cafes, maybe a little breakfast. And one of the beautiful parts of doing that for me is this is a small town and I get to see all of my friends every time I go to town. And so that's important for me. These are friends that I have in, whether they're cyclists or maybe they work for the chamber or maybe they work for a non-cycling company in town, whatever the case may be. I get to see all of my friends in this small town, right? So I do a little bit of work, and a bike ride is always involved, Bobby, whether it be gravel or mountain bike, or sometimes, like I said, I'll do a road ride, but here it's heavy on the gravel and mountain bike. And then generally speaking, we end every ride at one of these bike cafes with a margarita or a beer. It's just the way we do things. And so, we've got live music here. We've got beautiful movie theater. We've got so many things going on in this town. I'm always hanging out with my friends, and so that's one of the beautiful parts of living here is the community that's involved, along with the natural resources and the opportunities for riding, or really whatever floats your boat. My wife trail runs a lot, so yeah.
You mentioned the e-bike, which is a great invention, isn't it? I bought one for my wife for her birthday. Now we can do bike tours together, and it's just fantastic. And I'm
That's
not
right.
shy to say, quite often I steal her e-bike to go to
Yeah,
next grocery
yeah.
shop. They are just so easy to use. I love them. I have to say, they are great, eh?
Jens, I will. I know that there can be a lot of debate on the usefulness of e-bikes in the world, right? And so this is my opinion on it. This summer, I have a 13-year-old daughter. This summer, I took my 13-year-old daughter out. I would go out on 30, 40-mile gravel rides. But what I did is she's not my height, but if I drop the seat down on my commuter e-bike, which has big mountain bike tires, she can ride with me on these 30-mile gravel rides at my pace. I'm going my pace, and she's still getting a workout. I'm getting a workout. We're stopping at all these little creek crossings. She gets to go swimming. I could take my mother or my father out on a ride with me, and we can go. Again, this sounds selfish, but we can go my pace, right? I can still get my regular ride in, but I'm taking someone out that I love, or maybe a friend that otherwise I wouldn't be able to share this experience with. I'm able to share this experience with them right now. There's a lot of other reasons for it. Like, for example, I ride my bike a lot, and when I'm tired, but I still want to go out on a ride with my buds, I'll get on my e-mountain bike. They can ride their regular mountain bikes. I just want to be with my buds, hanging out with them, right? There's so many reasons for riding an e-bike, and I'm okay with the people who disagree with these reasons, but I feel like e-bikes are a game changer. They help people get into biking who otherwise would not have been able to do that, right? And then they help people like me for commuting, taking my friends out on rides that I wouldn't be able to take with, or when I'm tired, I can still go ride my bike, or not feeling great. I just think there's a myriad of reasons for e-bikes, and we're seeing here in Bentonville, we're seeing an explosion in e-bikes on the trails, people commuting. Most of the people commuting on their bikes here in town, they're commuting on e-bikes these days. It's I'm a believer. I'm a full believer in them for sure.
Well, we've said this many times on our podcast. We're big believers for all of the reasons that you just mentioned. So, well, Andy, listen, it's been great chatting with you. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with ourselves, our listeners and viewers. Good luck with everything that's going on down there in Bentonville and with all your projects, and look forward to coming back, and I'll bring this little knucklehead along with me, hopefully sometime.
Heck yeah. Yes, you got to bring him. It's been a pleasure talking to you guys, Jens. It was an honor to meet you. I have been huge fans of all of you guys for years. I told George the other day, I sent him a follow-up text, and I was like, it's pretty interesting. Like, I've, watched you guys on TV racing for years, and it's just a pleasure to get to meet you finally. Who would have known that one day I'd get to meet some people that I was like cheering for on, at the tour or whatever, It's very cool. So it was an honor for me to talk to you guys. Thank you.
Well, that's all the time we have for this week. Big, huge thank you to Andy Chasteen for being our guest.
Thanks a million for listening, and please give us a 5-star review and share us with your friends.
The show was a Velo production in association with Shocked Giraffe. This episode was produced and edited by Mark Payne.
And please remember to check the video version of this podcast by heading to the Outside Watch YouTube channel.
Get in touch with us on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and Facebook. Just head to @BobbyandJens. Give us a follow. This week, we want to know, what, in your opinion, makes the perfect trail?